Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, frequent flyers, wherever you're dialing in with us today. Thank you for being here. Today, I've got Greg Hodgin, and we're talking about making sci-fi dreams a reality and how we can power our world while gaining the stars. Now, Greg and I met at a conference last year called New Worlds, which is actually not a conference, but an event to redefine how we view gathering together. How are we creating the new world? And something that Greg is working on is going to do exactly that. He has done some incredible things in his life. He's a humanitarian. He's learned how to be in diplomatic situations and take that mindset and skill set into what he's doing now, distilling these really complex ideas that, the first words I heard out of Greg's mouth were like tetrahedron and a nuclei folding in on itself. And I was like, I don't know what you just said, but it sounds really cool. Let's have a conversation. So today we're going to be diving in and making it really simple so that we can understand and also talk about how we can come up with impossible solutions. Like Alice in Wonderland, Greg has ideas that sometimes he thinks of 6 impossible things before breakfast. Greg, it's great to have you here today.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me on board. I really appreciate it. Let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about the science that you're working on, how do you take something that's so abstract and so complex for people and distill it down? Can you walk us through that process? And then after you do that, could you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
Absolutely. Honestly, one of my two biggest heroes, Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Yeah.
and actually three if I go for Stephen Hawking as well. You're taking very complicated concepts and you're kind of breaking them down because science is not this. It's not mysticism. It's not something that's not supposed to be understood. Science is
Right.
designed to be understood. It's designed to be broken down to simple chunks. It's just the problem is that a lot of people, especially people who get their graduate work, especially whether it's a hard science or a soft science, they kind of dive so far into the well they forget that there's other things out there, right? And I
Mm.
kind of go to the allegory of Plato's cave. They're
Oh,
so far in the cave and they see the shadows and they're like, that's the real thing. They can't get out again to realize that there's other things going on. I've met plenty of people who they're absolutely brilliant in their field.
yeah.
They can't open a door, but they're absolutely brilliant in their field, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the things I always kind of took a note from was Richard Feynman when he discussed if you cannot explain the concept to a 5-year-old, you
Hmm.
don't fully understand the concept, right? So that does not mean that you lie. Does not mean that you exaggerate. You simplify to the best of your ability. Now that sometimes that means there's a lower limit where you can't go below, certainly,
Yeah.
but if you're starting to pull math out, usually that's a problem. If people want to see the math, show them the math. If they don't want to see the math, explain the concepts and walk your way through it very simply. So my PhD is in political science. So one of the things I always talk with what I taught my students about was, let's define democracy. Like, oh, that's easy. I'm like, all right, let's do that then. And then all of a sudden it's an hour conversation. Well, I mean, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it's not a lecture anymore. Now it's a discussion. It's a conversation. And
Yeah.
the best way to learn anything is to teach it to somebody else or to have that conversation with somebody else. So, um, part of my job, especially, is going around talking to everyone that I can and having the same conversation 1,000 times. But it's not the same conversation because I learned how to reach different people in different ways. Some people uh, understand one analogy or metaphor better than another one, right?
Yes.
So I usually have like 5 lined up in the back of my head. This one didn't work. We'll go to number 2. We'll go to number 3. We'll go to number 4, and we'll kind of go from there. So um, when it comes to this complex science, there's so much amazing stuff that we're doing. But science is easy, and science is also amazing. Like right now,
Mhm.
you and I share something really cool in the fact that there are 4 ways. There's 4 bases in our DNA: A, C, G, and T, and that ties us to every living thing on this planet, all the way back to the first organism.
Wow.
How is that not amazing? And that's a
Incredible.
very simple thing to have a conversation about, right? Like I don't have to go into the science behind that or anything like that. It's just the tree of life is very long and we're all related in that way. We're all part of a larger whole.
Yeah.
That's still science, but it's a very simple thing to have a conversation about. We're all star children. Supernova, when they blow up, produce heavy elements. So that means that anything heavier than iron came from dead stars. So we're all made of stardust,
Stardust.
you
Yes.
know? And yeah, but the thing is that I don't need to talk about nucleosynthesis. I don't need to talk about the nuclear fusion and all these things. I just need to have that conversation. It's that very surface level. You want to dive in? cool, we can have that conversation,
Right.
but it's about making it accessible.
I love
And I will admit it was difficult because when I was younger, I was like, but what if they don't think I know what I'm talking about?
it. Right.
So I would do what I call data dumping. I'm going to give you everything. People tune out. They're like, I
Absolutely.
can't hear that. I don't. That's too much. I'm not there. I could see people's eyes glaze over by like 2 minutes, and they're like, I'm done. So now it's much more like let's give a 5-minute snippet at most, maybe 2 minutes. Here's what's happening. I'll stop. See where I'm going? No,
Right.
can you go back and sure, let me go back. I'll take 2 steps back so we can move you 3 steps forward, right? Or if they're like, let's keep going. Cool. You have that 2-minute conversation, and then you do the 5 minutes and then the 30 minutes if you want to. Or if you don't want to, that's fine too. As long as you're not um, exaggerating or you're not simplifying so much that you lose the meat of the issue, you're
Right.
good to go. So it was a process because I'm 40 and so it's been it's been a journey in that regard to figure out kind of like how to take these complex concepts and make them simple. And I'm still learning. Like I still mess up all the time. And anyone who says they don't mess up is a liar,
Yes.
and also a liar. Um, so for me, I know that I drop as fast as I can, but sometimes I still make mistakes. But that's a good thing. You don't
Right.
learn from success.
Right.
It's why I'm a huge gamer. I love video games, board games, card games, whatever. I don't learn jack when I win. It's when I
Right.
lose.
And you
It's
might
when I
even get a little bit of an ego and be like, I got this. And you
well,
stop doing the things to learn new strategy or figure things out. And you just maybe
right,
make
right.
fine choices.
And it's a frustrating thing too because it's you see that a lot in competitions. Like you're number one for the past 3 years. Well, obviously you know what we're doing. You got into a rut, and everyone else is seeing that you got into a rut. Now they're going to take you, and then they do, right? To
Yeah.
stay on top and to continue to do these things, to go back to Teddy Roosevelt's arena speech, like when you get back into the arena over and over and over again, you might get your ass kicked.
Right.
But if you get your ass kicked, you can still learn something, right?
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, really the key is you're never going to stop making mistakes, but you will over time make less mistakes and you'll learn from those mistakes faster over time. And
Yes.
that's really the key. There's nothing that bothers you more than someone who says, I know everything about this subject. One, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Second, the fact that you say that you know everything shows me how little you actually know. Anyone who has moved and any PhD, anyone who's got a PhD worth their salt and their subject goes, I don't feel like an expert. I don't feel like an expert. But you literally
Mhm.
wrote the book on it. Yes, but there's so much I don't know.
Right.
And I think that I'm sure you know the story of the Oracle of Delphi talking to
Mhm.
Socrates. But for the listeners at home, Oracle of Delphi was asked, "Who's the smartest Greek?" And they said Socrates. So they found Socrates and said, "Why do you think the Oracle said that you're the smartest Greek?" And Socrates said, "Because I know how much I don't know."
Mm.
People who think that they know everything usually know nothing. The people who know nothing usually are the ones who know. I'm not going to say everything, but they know a lot more than they give themselves credit for.
Yeah.
So it's a frustrating thing in that regard, but it's also a good thing because it does. Going back to your point, humility and modesty is built in when you realize the vast store of human knowledge that there's no way for any of us to actually assimilate all of it. It's just not possible,
Yeah.
especially in the 21st century. Sure, we've got Wikipedia and Google, but you know, even if you dump that into your head, you still don't fully comprehend and understand it. There's a difference between
Right.
having it in your head and being able to use it effectively.
Yes. I think that you've just hit the nail on the head there with a very important point because a lot of people think, oh, I've read this thing. I listened to the podcast. I came across this information. And so now I should be an expert. And they hold themselves to these really high standards, which
Mhm.
either sometimes freezes people, they don't do anything, or they're just really stressed through the process rather than allowing themselves to iterate. And
Mhm.
really, I mean, the scientific method is an iterative process. Art, craft, it is an iterative process. And that is how we get better. And it's that marginal growth over time that's sustainable rather than these. Yes, we have quantum leaps every once in a while, but it can't happen all the time. And when that does happen, we often then find, well, we're not ready to really utilize that tool. We're not at the level that can actually hold this the way that it's intended to be. And so we have some catch up to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right about the quantum leap thing. It's when you're learning a new skill, it's almost like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. What am I doing? What am I doing? All of a sudden, oh, and it just shoots almost straight up.
Yes.
But then you hit another plateau, And it's actually kind of funny. There's a joke in poker circles. Um, the person who can beat you, if you're an expert, is either another expert or a complete novice. And the
Yes.
reason is because the novice doesn't know how much they don't know, so they just bet randomly and they don't know what they're doing. So you can't predict their behaviors because they don't know anything. The mess up thing is when you teach a novice how to play poker, quote unquote, correctly, and to actually maximize your chances of winning, they start to suck
Yes.
because they're kind of going, but the random thing was working. Yes, but that's not going to really help you now. So you go into what I call the valley of suck before you become better at it, right? So you're like, oh, I'm kind of cool. You have to go down first and really start getting your ass kicked. Like you really have to start failing a lot and losing a lot before all of a sudden you go, oh. But the key thing is the reason the experts are experts is because, yeah, randomness and all that good stuff, yeah, you're at a certain level. You can't go beyond that. You go down, you go up, you're going to be way above those people, way
Absolutely.
above them. But a lot of people, they hit that valley of suck and they don't want to do it because
Right.
and this is true from, since the beginning of time. One of the first things that we've got from an archaeological standpoint of what's written down is teachers complaining about students and how they can't learn and how
Hmm.
they can't sit still and how they don't want to learn anything. This is from like Babylonian cuneiform from 4000 BC. Like this is not new. Like being able to pay attention and being able to stay not just focused but determined, being able to get yourself back up
Mm.
again and just keep trying. Because going out to the ring and getting your ass kicked, anyone can do that.
Right.
Going to the ring and getting your ass kicked 100 times and learning how to dodge each time and then coming back and win the 101st time, that is what separates the people who are going to make it and the people who don't. With that being said, if you don't succeed, yes, try again. But like after 200 times and you realize you might not have the skill set for it, maybe it's time to walk away and find something else. That's okay
Yeah.
too. And that's a tough thing because we tell people so many times like it's great determination. Yeah, but listen, man, if you're 4 feet tall, you're not playing in the NBA. You can't teach height. Like it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
it's
I think
it's
it's
a
also being okay with putting the dream on the shelf, maybe revisiting it later, or just to say, you know what, my dreams have changed because a
yeah.
lot of people don't give themselves that permission and they're persistently following something when actually that dream doesn't align with them anymore. And then sometimes they get it and they're like, man, this sucks.
It's funny you should say that because that was actually my first career. I went to my first degree was biochemistry. I went to Emory University because Emory University literally shares a property line with the CDC. I wanted to go and work on anti-HIV work. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an MD. I did a shift at Emory University's hospital, and I lost 3 pounds out of my mouth because I realized I had a pathological fear of blood that I could not
No.
get over,
Yeah.
and that
That's
I'm not
hard.
doing medical school. Like I couldn't do it, and that kind of created an existential crisis for me of like, well, what the hell am I going to do? Like
Yeah.
this was my life. I want to do this the whole time, and I felt like a failure. I felt
Mm.
like I was, this was something that I had spent my entire life doing. I want to do this. I was buckled in. I was ready. Could not handle it. My friends, bless their hearts, tried so hard to like. They were like, "Let's show you horror movies. Let's like take you to." I literally watched a friend get a piercing. I passed out because I saw blood on the Q-tip. Like it was that bad.
Wow.
So I realized I couldn't do it. So just like you said, I went, "Am I a failure?" And after a couple of years of drinking heavily, I went, "Well, no. I could just pick something else."
Yes.
But it's difficult for a lot of people to let go of that because we like to think we're the same person we're always the same person, but we're not.
Right.
I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. If I met myself 20 years ago, I'd smack him. He's such an arrogant little bastard.
Same.
Um,
Same.
right? And I just want to shake him and be like, dude, you there's so much shit you don't know.
Yeah.
And also I'd be like, get out of your own head too, and but I can't remember the name of the philosopher. I think he was French, who said life is only lived forwards, but it's only understood backwards. And
Mm.
and it's very true because you think about your past self and you're like idiot. But then again,
Right.
I also understand. Now I understand. 20 years from now, I'm gonna look back at myself at 44 and go idiot.
Yeah.
Like I can't. But a lot of people don't want to get into that. And Emory, and I hope that the alumni committee doesn't call me, but Emory produces three things very well: lawyers, doctors, and drug addicts. And sometimes these overlap. And I've met a lot of people at the reunions who are doctors or lawyers. They're on their third divorce, and they hate their lives. They got money, but
Right.
that's not making them happy. They hate,
Right.
but they felt like they were in the path for so long, and they were like in the train for so long. They're like, well, what am I else supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you've locked yourself in your own prison, man,
Yeah.
or
Golden
woman.
handcuffs.
Yeah, it's not just golden handcuffs. Like that's the thing, is that they could find jobs that paid just as well, if not better. They just cannot see outside that cage that they built for themselves. They don't
Mm,
want to explore because they're terrified. Because what if it
yeah.
doesn't work out? What if it doesn't?
Right.
Like you're
And
already
and
unhappy
what
as
if
it
it does?
is. And
Stoicism practices regularly the thought process of, what if you lost everything, you had to start all over tomorrow?
done it 3 times already. So what? Like
Same,
it's
right?
you,
Now
you
I'm
know,
like, okay,
but you don't lose everything because you still have what's up here. And I think
right.
people forget that. You lost everything. No, you lost everything physical. You didn't lose your
Yeah.
psychological prep. You didn't lose your intellect.
You have
People say, "What's
experience.
you right?
And
What's
life is lived above the head. This was something a keynote speaker last month I saw said, "Life is lived above the shoulders," excuse me. And so it's like all up here, and he shared his journey of being a paraplegic, and he said the quadriplegics had better mindset than he did, or than at the quadriplegics, because they had nothing, so they were just using their minds and seeing what they could do, rather than the people of like, "Oh, I can't walk, but I can do this." And it was a real, like, work, effort, discipline to shift out of that. And so, we don't lose that.
there's a great study that was done on Olympic champions, where they studied who was happiest on the podium, and of course the gold medalists were the happiest. The second happiest were the bronze. And the reason is because the bronze people were going, I beat everybody below me to be on this podium. The unhappiest were always the silvers. If I had only
Yeah,
done X, Y, or Z, I could be first. Not they never thought about the fact that they had beat everyone except for one person. They always looked at themselves as first loser. The
right.
bronze people looked at themselves as like winner but two. And the mindset of that. And it turns and I don't know if there's been a study on this, but I'd love to see a study of like people who won bronze, did they come back next year and win gold? Like, did
Right.
that give them motivation? And did the silvers drop out because they were so negatively motivated? Did they just not come back? Like, I'd love to see. Hell, I might have to do this study myself. But it's fascinating from a psychological standpoint because um, it might have been Einstein. The most abundant element in the universe is hydrogen. The second most abundant element is human self-deception.
Okay.
We lie to ourselves all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes that's good. Um, but the thing is that um, uh, we all lie to ourselves no matter what. The goal is to lie less to yourself because the less that you lie to yourself, the more you can realize your limitations, things like that. But a lot of people don't want to do that because facing yourself in the mirror sometimes is the most difficult thing that anybody can do. And I feel that way sometimes myself. I look in the mirror, especially given what I'm doing right now, and go, "Are you crazy?" And the answer is, "Well, yeah, you know,
We're all
that's
mad here. It's one of my favorite
but
quotes.
right, but are you crazy?" And what I usually say is, "Are you crazy or are you crazy, crazy?" Right? Because crazy is we can change the world. Crazy is we can change the world and kill everybody. Like there's a difference, right?
Yeah.
Now the scary thing is there's a thin line
Right.
between that crazy and that crazy, crazy. And unfortunately, the mirror cannot see itself. Like sometimes you can't see your own pathologies. You can't see your own
Right.
weaknesses. So
It's like the
one of the things
scientist to mad scientist, right? They start off on this path of figuring it out, solving the puzzle, like ingenuity, and then they get blinded to those ethical lines that start to get blurred, and all of a sudden, but they're so focused on this, they can't see that, whereas other people can.
who are the best villains? The ones who think that they're doing the right thing. The ones
Mhm.
who think that who look themselves in the mirror and go, I am doing this for the betterment of myself, my friends, my family, humanity, whatever. One of my classic examples, and yes, I'm a Star Trek nerd, obviously.
Yes,
Khan
me
is a great
too.
example. What a sympathetic villain. Like yes, and it's a very Greek tragedy. What's his flaw? Pride, ego, arrogance. But he's very intelligent. He knows what he's doing. He's got a damn good reason to go after Kirk. He absolutely does. Yes, he's nuts. He absolutely is. But he's got reason to be, and he plays it well. And you see the mirror of Kirk versus Khan in that regard of going there, but the grace of God goes I, right? Like I could be that person. I could fall to the, for lack of a better term, and mix my sci-fi franchises. I could fall to the dark side easily, you know. But that's a choice, isn't it? You can
Yeah.
always choose every day not to fall. And if you do fall and do something stupid, you can choose not to. When it comes to grit and determination, especially, a lot of people kind of go, "Well, I made a mistake." Like, if someone is an alcoholic and they just hit 6 months and they had a drink, do you curse them out? No. You say,
No.
"Listen, it happens. Put it back down. Don't worry about it." It's the
Right.
ones who say, "Well, I mean, I'm already done
Right.
it,
I've
so I
already
might as well
gone
go
off the
ahead and
deep end. Might
so
as
I
well
might
high
as well just
five.
go ahead and get my funnel and just load up Everclear and call it a day," right? Like, when you fall down, a lot of people don't forgive. They'll forgive all their friends. They'll forgive their family. They'll forgive a
Themselves.
random
Right.
stranger. They won't forgive themselves.
Yeah.
They Because we want to hold ourselves to a higher standard than everybody else. And my response when people say, "Well, I just want to do this," I'm like, "So are you better than everybody else? Are you that arrogant that you think that you're more human than human?" Well,
Right.
no, but that's how you're acting, right?
Yes.
Like,
Logic is
it's
flawed, right? But when you can point that out, that can often help like clear the muck and they can see a
if
little bit
they're
more
ready for
clearly.
it, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
if
No,
they're
they
ready
have to be at
for
the
it.
right place.
And that's one of the things about a lot of the stuff is you can't change anybody's mind ever. You can't. You plant seeds and they'll change their own mind. But you can't change
Right.
somebody's mind.
No,
And
the way to do it is you plant seeds, you water them, you make them feel something so that they become curious. And then in that curiosity, they make the choice to step forward. It will always be more powerful than you drag them across the line.
because if you drag them across the line, it's not their choice. You make it their choice.
Yeah,
And
they'll
you're
do it
absolutely right.
temporarily. They might do it temporarily. You know, how many times have we seen, for example, people get married and all of a sudden a behavior changes because the
Mhm.
spouse doesn't like it. But as soon as they get divorced, that behavior comes straight back, like the next same day, next day, right?
Mhm.
It's because it wasn't their
Doubled.
choice. Right. And they often go, even more extreme. And
Mhm.
so it's always, attract with honey, not beat with the stick if you are hoping to inspire others for that.
When we discuss politics, especially, we always talk about carrots and sticks, but you
Mhm.
want to use carrots more than sticks,
Yeah.
always. Sometimes you have to use sticks. Like, there's just sometimes the quote I usually use in poli sci is sometimes you just got to punch a Nazi in the face. Like, it's just that simple. But you don't want to use it as your first resort, right? You want to use something else. And but there's a lot of people who just don't want to prep for that, who don't want to hear it, who aren't ready for it. And
Mhm.
if you're not ready for it, I can't get you there. What I can do is I can have a conversation with you, respect your boundaries, create a safe space for you. When you do want to have that conversation, you know that I will listen to you and we'll have that conversation. Now the field is fertile. Now the field is fallow. Now I can begin planting. But
Yes.
besides that, it's tough and it's difficult. Um, and it's a lesson that it took me a long time to learn because I used to be that make the classic scientist error of like, if I just give you enough data, you're going to change your mind.
Mm,
Politics has taught me no, that is not true at all. You can dump as much data as you want on somebody. If they don't trust you, if they don't believe you, and if they're already sold on something else, it doesn't matter. Usually, people
right.
double down when you show them data. They actually
They'll find a way to
believe,
refute it. They wanna try to make it wrong.
or they just don't believe your source. They don't believe you because it's from the
Right.
mainstream media, or scientists are like paid, or like there's so much like any excuses, whatever. Right? They will absolutely because they're facing cognitive dissonance, they will just absolutely ignore what you're saying and all that good stuff. You will not win
Absolutely.
that conversation.
No.
If, on the other hand, they come to you and say, "Hey, listen, you gave me something to think about. Can we have a conversation?" Ah, because you've approached me.
Yes.
Now that mind is open. Now we can have the conversation. I still might not convince them, but that's
Right.
still a step. And at this
It's not
point, now they're
important
listening.
progress.
That's
Right,
right.
and it's back to what you said about, how you take this really complex thing, you could throw the math at them or the data, but it's most people will shut down because it's too much or they feel stupid, right? Then they
Yeah.
feel like, "Oh my god, that this person's so much smarter than me. I shouldn't say anything else because 'cause I'm just gonna look dumb." And so when you bumper sticker it, right, you make it so simple that they can get it. And then when they're curious and like, oh my gosh, I would love to learn more. And they know how to use the big words, then all of a sudden you can like go, yes, great. And now you can have that conversation. But if not, that's okay. Right. And it's sometimes a very slow process, but it's that over time we get the exponential growth, right? It's not rushing the process of nature.
Yeah. The theory I usually go to is punctuated equilibrium. Species stay the same, and then there's an environmental change, and then all of a sudden, massive speciation. You get a massive evolutionary change very quickly, very, very quickly, because now there's a pressure, there's a stress on the system.
Mhm.
And that's what happens with a lot of people. Um, Most people do not change unless they absolutely want to, and they put in the willpower and the time, or there's what we call an exogenous shock. Something
Okay.
happens from outside your system. that affects you in a very personal way. Usually it's a death scare, like you had a
Mm,
heart attack, or you woke up drunk on the toilet one night, or there's plenty of things.
yeah,
Like there's a defining event that you go, shit, if I don't stop this, like it's usually, and the vernacular is usually you hit bottom, whether
right,
that is drug abuse or infidelity or your divorce or whatever these things, right? Then you get the choice. And it's easiest to change at that point because at that point, of course, you go, what do I have to lose?
right.
The problem is, and this happened, it happened to him. My father chose, well, I mean, I'd still rather drink. He died alone in his apartment, drinking like a quart of liquor every day. Like he just gave
Wow.
up, which is why I don't. So, his failure became my success, which is sad, but it is what it is. But there's plenty of people who do this, who kind of go, that's too much work. I don't, and it's not that they're lazy, they just don't feel like they can handle it. They don't feel like they have the capacity to do it. And it saddens me because there's plenty of people who have so much untapped potential. I challenge anyone who's listening to this right now, go to your local coffee shop, and I bet you 20 bucks, especially on a busy day, there's going to be like 10, 15, 20 laptops open. Ask every single one of them how many unfinished projects are on their hard drive, and every single one of them is going to tell you there's at least one. Every
Absolutely.
single one. Why didn't you finish it? Oh, well, because of life or da da, and so on and so forth. Everyone has things they want to do, and everyone usually has things that they haven't gotten done yet, and everyone gives themselves the excuses not to do it. And sometimes those are valid, sometimes they're not. And for me, you only get what, if you're lucky, 100 years on this planet. Make it count. And a lot of people are not motivated by that. I don't want to say they hold on to their fear, but fear is comfortable.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
place of
the
comfort.
devil that you know, right? Rather than the devil that you don't. But the thing is, I was on a call earlier with someone today, and her name's Katie McDonald, and she and I have very similar messages. We also both wear really cool glasses and have white
Very
hair.
nice.
Her hair is just natural, mine is not yet. Um, but she said that willpower and motivation are fickle lovers.
Yes.
And so if you're going to wait until the willpower comes or the motivation comes, you could be waiting forever.
You will be waiting forever because even if it does come, you might use it on something
Well,
else.
it's not going to stay, right? Because they're fickle. It's going to be
That's
like,
right.
oh, no, I changed my mind. I'm going to come back later.
Yeah. And then there is no later. Because you get distracted by life, and then 20 years later, the all-American novel that you were dying to write, that's going to make you F. Scott Fitzgerald, just sits there with an outline, or with
Yeah.
just a blank page. And it's something that I've forced myself to do. And thing about fear is that a lot of people find it comfortable because you're right, it's their comfort zone. But to grow, you have to leave that. You're going to feel uncomfortable when you leave the comfort
Right.
zone. That's by
Yeah.
definition, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
And you might
But
feel stressed, but stress is not a bad thing. Obviously we don't want it chronically, but stress literally is what changes you, right? Without
and
stress to the system, that change is not going to come about.
and that's where it gets really interesting, is the fact that you feel these things. Emotions are there for a reason,
Yes.
but we have a brain. You can choose to listen to the emotion and say, listen, look, I fear snakes with good reason. There's poisonous ones in the American South. There's cottonmouths everywhere. I'm not going to go up to a cottonmouth and try to have a hell of a
Hi, let me
conversation
pet
with
you.
it. Yeah, I'm probably going to, I get the hell away. If it's coming near me, I'm going to kill it. Like, that's just that simple. But that fear is not me going, oh, I should never go outdoors. It's
Right.
this fear is going, the fear is a rational response to that snake, this poisonous snake,
Yeah.
going, listen, this is dangerous to you.
Yes.
Cool. That does not mean that I should just go screaming, running away. The fear is telling me, all right, so my heart rate's going up, these are physical responses telling me this is something I should be paying attention to. Yes, my reptilian brain is saying run, but my rational brain is saying, but you don't have to.
Right.
It is now, with that being said, as someone with ADHD, I do have emotional dysregulation. It's tough. Sometimes when I face some emotions, they become overwhelming, they become overpowering. I can't really deal with them. So what do? I shut up, I cut off my phone, and I walk away because I don't
Mm.
want to make the mistakes of having my emotions take control. In fact, I've actually told if he's listening, hi, my COO has actually pulled me aside on one occasion. He literally grabbed me by the arm, and he's like, you're in that spot. You told me to grab you and squeeze you because that physical contact kind of breaks the
Disrupts
circuit.
the pattern. Yeah.
Right. And pulls me away. He's like, I know you need 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't need 5 minutes. Shut up. Go away. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, God, I really needed 5 minutes. He's like, I saw. And it's okay to fail in emotional control. But that's why you surround yourself with people who will help you reinforce the mechanisms so that when you get out of that comfort zone, you feel those emotions, you can kind of take a step back and reassess, reset your circuit breaker, and kind of come back in. Because when I was younger, I couldn't do that. I would just lose my shit.
Melt.
Like
Yeah.
I'd melt down. I'd melt down, and I still do it. Don't get me wrong. Don't think that it's automatically gone. But at least now I recognize I'm like, oh shit, it's coming.
Right. And
And
it's
sometimes,
awareness. It's awareness
yes,
that it's coming. And that momentary pause, it only takes, like, if you take one deep breath, that will stop the amygdala hijack that's taking place. You know,
sometimes,
like,
sometimes it does.
for
Not,
some people it takes longer, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
It takes
okay.
me about 5 to 10 minutes, but I'd rather have 5 to 10 minutes than a 4 hour meltdown. Right? I'm
Right.
fine with that.
No, but what I mean is just to stop the initial pattern to scratch, so
Mhm.
that grabbing of you and just the physical contact, all of a
That's
sudden
it.
it's
Yep.
like, "Oh, okay, now I know I have a different
Yep.
pathway that I can go down."
Hmm.
This app here, howwefeel.org, I put it up there because it is by Yale, I believe. I always get these Stanford and Yale mixed up on who's behind it, but I believe it's Yale. But they talk about being an emotion scientist, right? These are data
Yeah.
points. And this app was designed by engineers, by psychologists, by scientists. And it really changes your experience with how, like, learning how you feel and just even navigating that. Because without language, right, it would be like if you start speaking at a very high level math to me, I'm gonna go, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna tune out, or I'm gonna ignore it, or I might even be scared of you. I'm like, oh my God, is that aggressive? I don't know. I don't know what that means. Right. And it's the same thing with our emotions. If we don't have the language for it, or someone has taught us something and we don't understand it fully, we're going to have the same response.
That's absolutely right. And it's mental health in the United States is still behind everything else, and we still have a long way to go. We've made a lot of progress, especially from when I was a kid. We still have a long way to go, and I think that it's one of the most important things we can discuss is mental health because there's no eat the best diet in the world and exercise as much as you want to, and that's great. But if your mind is if you're dealing with mental disorders, if you're dealing with mental dysregulation or emotional dysregulation, look, I've run miles and adrenaline's pumping and I got endorphin running through me and all that good stuff, and that's great. It doesn't fix the problem because the
Mm,
problem's up here, and
right.
which is why I do therapy, and also there's medication for anti-anxiety, which I'm going to be taking soon. I'm very excited about. So it's and it's a process because again, 20 years ago, I don't think I didn't even recognize who I became 20 years ago,
Right.
and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. I mean, can you imagine? I cannot imagine going back in time to tell myself 20 years ago, hey, listen, Greg, you're working on warp drive in 20 years. I go, what?
You're like, what? That's so cool.
That's well, no, I'd be like, no, you can't
Yeah.
do that. You don't. You're. I know 20 years ago, my 20 something year old self would have said, you're not smart enough to do that.
Yeah. How the smartest people I find often, as to what you said in the beginning, like they're super smart in this subject, but they can't open a door, right? Or they're not socially competent, or they're, common sense to them is not common because they just like live on this cerebral plane in a very different world all the time. But very often it's that, no, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough, or I'm not the expert. I don't know enough yet. But that's exactly what allows you to get there because of
Yep.
those
Yep.
processes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of this warp drive, tell me more.
So very, very simple. Actually, ironically enough. So when you move from point A to point B, usually you have to travel from point A to point B. Our goal is we just take space time itself and just fold point A on point B. Um, in essence, think about like a carpet, and all you do
Yep.
is scrunch up the carpet. That's
Okay.
it.
I'm poking a hole through
Yeah.
like
So
that.
yeah. So like let's see if I got this. So here we go. So if I'm on this thing right here and I'm going from point A to point B, I can either
Mhm.
walk all the way across or whoop, I can do that. And what we're doing is because this is what Star Trek does. It's called a warp drive for a reason. You're warping space time in front of you, right? And you're expanding it behind you. Um, the funny thing is, Star Trek's warp drives are very thanks, Daniel. Um, very, very simple, very, very inefficient. They're warping huge amounts of space time in front of them, expanding huge amounts in front of them, behind them. The bizarre thing is that's really inefficient. There's a reason why in Star Trek you don't see them like using warp in a solar system because they do. They're going to wreck planets, right? It's very inefficient. Our idea is, if I've got this thing and I want to go from point A to point B, I could spend a lot of energy doing this,
Hmm.
or I could take a very small part and bend it, and then I
Okay.
just keep doing that
Keep doing it over and over, repeating it.
over and over and over again, like 100 million times a second. So I don't do this massive warping of like kilometers at a time.
Right.
I do a micron at a time. We're just doing it 100 million times a second. And the great thing about physics is almost zero and zero are two very different things. Almost zero adds up a lot. I mean, a lot. Perfect example. There's four forces in the universe. There's electromagnetism, strong force, weak force, and gravity.
Mhm.
These are covered by quantum, and those are the very small ones. In fact, I'm going to do the weird. It's Star Trek, but it's not. These are covered by quantum. Gravity's covered by relativity. Gravity, ironically enough, is actually almost it's almost zero. It's the weakest of the four forces. And here's
Okay.
how I know. See this pen? I'm going to lift it. Oh, look, I'm beating the entire gravitational field of the planet by doing this. That's and you can try it at home. It's
Yeah.
very simple, right? Any other force, it's almost impossible. It's impossible for you to do that because the forces are orders of magnitude stronger than that.
Okay.
Why does gravity matter? Because gravity has no maximum range. Gravity is always attractive. Because of that, I'm attracted to you. I'm attracted to everyone who's listening to this. We're all attracted to each other. We're all part of one big, massive gravitational thing, right? I'm attracted to the galaxy across the universe. Now, it is infinitesimally small, and I probably can't
Mhm.
even measure it, but it's still there. So
Yes.
at the quantum level, the other forces matter. At macroscopic levels, gravity's king, always. So, but it's still insanely weak. So when we looked at the math, and we've got three sets of researchers. We're about to add we just added a fourth set of researchers. We all looked at the math. We were like, hey, listen, this can be done. We can actually do this. But everyone kept trying to build this damn thing.
Right.
Everyone kind of wanted to go, we want warp
Big.
drive right now. We want
Yeah.
it big. We want it right now. My argument was, why don't we go small? Because here's the thing. This bad boy didn't run off of coal. Now did it? What power source do we use to run the Enterprise? And they're like, and I talked to these warp drive. In fact, actually, I brought a prop. Here's the research. This is the last 30 years of warp drive research.
Wow.
You say, wow, but think about this for a second. If I said this is the last 30 years of artificial intelligence research, I couldn't
No.
hold it.
No, that's what I mean. Wow is, and it's way too small.
Yeah, you're right. It's way too small, because a lot of people who are looking into it were like, first of all, they wanted to go faster than light. That's all they want to do. We want to break the light barrier. Cool. How about we learn to walk before we run, right? Well, I want to build this. Cool. What's your power source? I don't know. Someone will come up with fusion or whatever. There's three sources of power we can use to actually power something like this. Fission, which we already know how to do, but there's a bunch of messy stuff with that.
Yeah.
Fusion, which walk outside and look up and you can see fusion, but we're still working on that one, which I'll get to in a second. And there's matter and antimatter. We don't have the technology to produce that stuff yet. So when I asked them, well, how are you going to, what power source? It's not my problem, because they're theoretical physicists. It's a math exercise for them.
Yeah.
So I drank with a friend one night, heavily, and then I smoked a hookah, and then I took a shower, and I was like, if we're folding space-time, can we not fold nuclei on top of each other? Isn't that what fusion is? And then I drank some more, and then I slept on it. And then the next morning, I started reaching out to people, and they're like, you're not wrong. So I realized that we can actually do fusion on this planet on a very small scale, like the sun, by using space-time distortion, by taking, going back to our nice little example here, by taking very small amounts and just folding very small amounts of each other. I
Yeah.
can fold these nuclei on top of each other. When they get close enough, nuclei are all positively charged, so they don't want to get together. They want
Right.
to go away. They hate each other. But if they get close enough, the strong force takes over and they fuse. That's what fusion is. In the sun, because it's so big, gravity pulls it all in, and so you create this massive amount of pressure and temperature, and you get fusion, which is pushing back out. So in essence, the sun, when you think about it, is a massive, slowly burning fusion bomb when you really think about it,
Yeah.
which is cool. And by the way, for those of you who do not know, our sun is the equivalent of a human in his mid-40s, is middle-aged. It's doing fine. Everything's fine. Nothing to worry about. But 5 billion years from now, it's going to be on life support, and we're all going to be dead. But when we look at fusion here, every company that's doing fusion right now is trying to build bigger and bigger and bigger. They want bigger magnets. They want bigger. They want a tokamak. They want big, massive lasers. They want all these huge things. Our idea was, let's go smaller. So we can do our stuff on a tabletop in a lab. In fact, Dr. Chance Glenn, who you also met earlier last year, he just got done with his first set of experiments. He's not positives yet, but he's already starting to learn what needs to be done on all these things. You don't need a lot of power to actually distort space-time at the microscopic level. It's not insignificant. Like, it's not 2 car batteries and a bunch of wires. But it's not. We don't need to call the transformer station and let them know we're going to yank them down, 1.21 gigawatts of power, because we're not doing time travel yet.
Yeah.
The goal for us is to show proof of concept. Once we do that, we can start producing fusion reactors, the size of about a kitchen table. It looks like that'll produce terawatts of power, and that's insane.
It is.
As we learn more, now I can begin making bigger warp fields, because right now the warp field is like, a nanometer or a micrometer or something like that. Now let's get bigger. Let's go to millimeters, decimeters, meters. You know what you can put in meters? People. Now we can start flying around. We're not doing faster than light, though. Again, I'm just very small amounts, but I can do this massive amount of space-time distortion. And I can move around as non-inertial. So that means I can kind of like, with one pulse, I can kind of go up, I can go left and go right. Also, you don't leave it on. When you leave it on, you kind of cut off from the space-time continuum. That's one of the problems. So you pulse it. You cut it on, you cut it off. So each time that I'm turning it on, I'm crunching that little bit. Then I cut off, I'm back in normal space-time. Cut it back on again, crunch that little bit. Wash, rinse, repeat. It's like I said, when you break it down like that, it sounds simple. The math is really complicated, but
I would imagine
it's not as difficult as people think it is, because people, when they hear warp drive, when they hear Einstein, they go, it's too much.
Right.
They see the math and their minds kind of melt, and mine did too. But when you break down the concept like that, it actually becomes, I don't want to say simple, but it makes a lot more sense. And a lot of people actually ask me, well, that's so easy. Why didn't someone else think about it? And I said, have you heard the story of Columbus's egg? And Christopher Columbus, the genocidal jackass, terrible person, but good story. He's in Spain or whatever, and someone basically says, someone at the court basically says, well, I mean, anyone could have done that. Like, I mean, all you had to do was sail west. Like, it's not. Why is that a big of a deal? So Columbus basically hands him an egg and says, take this egg, and I want you to stand it up on its small end on the table. And the guy looks at it and tries it and can't do it. And so Columbus takes it and he taps the egg on the table, the small end, so it flattens, and puts it there. He says, it's easy when someone else shows you how to do it, isn't it?
It's great.
Most amazing discoveries are this light bulb moment, and the second you have it, you go, why did no one else think of this? Because no one did. Right. It's just that simple. And it's mind-boggling when we look back at a lot of these things of so many of these inventions. Why didn't we just do that beforehand? Because no one thought of it before. It looks so easy in retrospect, but hindsight's always 20/20.
Absolutely.
So it's a bizarre thing when I have this conversation, because people are like, you're doing amazing stuff. I'm like, first of all, I'm not the scientist. I'm finding money and giving them the support to do their science. I understand enough to understand how much I don't know. Right. And I do my best to dive into this stuff, but I don't know the math or the materials as well as they do. But I know enough to be able to filter out the crazy people. Actually, the crazy people. Yeah. Yes, the crazy people. Because all the people who are going to be crazy, which is great. The crazy people, I don't want you around. Yeah. But it's fascinating to me that so many people are like, oh, you're just doing such amazing work. I'm like, I still feel like this is still crazy stuff, but the more we do it, the more I'm like, this might work. Like this might actually work.
I love it. Now I also feel like I understand that first conversation I walked in on that you were talking about, like I said in the intro, right? Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I actually understand it. So you just demonstrated how to take something so complex and make it simple so that we could understand. And I really love that you highlighted that everyone is trying to go big, travel faster than the speed of light. And that's why we haven't been able to. But as soon as it was just like, wait, let's slow down a little bit, take a step back and just do it that tiny little bit, but faster, like as in more consistently. Now you're getting progress, right?
Mhm.
It's finance 101. 1% compounding over the year is 37x, right? That
Well,
one
yeah,
tiny thing over and over and over is going to compound and you get the exponential growth over time.
even better. If we're able to move something at a velocity of a tenth the speed of light, I beat every rocket. I beat SpaceX to the ground. Screw you, Elon. It's just that simple. I don't need to go FTL to corner any market on the planet in that
Yeah.
regard. But even better, as we learn how the warp fields work, now we understand, well, how do we go to FTL? Glad you asked. Here's 10 years of data. Now
Yeah.
we know what we need to do. Are we going to face some sort of like light wave, shock wave? I don't know. I have no idea. But we have an incremental way of discovering that and finding out. Why
Right.
go big when you start small and kind of get bigger from there? And you're absolutely right. It's fascinating how people kind of go, well, when are we going to get the Phoenix? Star Trek's first warp drive ship. I'm like, I don't know, 2063. We could probably hit that, but we can't do it now. No, no, stop. You're jumping way ahead. There's 10,000 steps between that,
Yeah.
and a lot of people want to go now. Cool. I'd rather learn how all this stuff works and make sure that we understand how this all happens before we do make that jump to light speed. I still
Yeah.
want to go FTL. I still want to go faster than light. Absolutely. I don't want to die on this planet. I want to be on Alpha Centauri. But I also understand that that's not going to happen tomorrow or next year or 10 years from now, unless we get insanely lucky, which we're not. Science is slow and it's stodgy, and there's a lot of dead ends, and that's what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
that's part of the process. And understanding that process, to go back to one of Thomas Edison's best quotes, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I just learned 1,000 ways this didn't work.
Mm.
And that's progress too, right? And that's what we're trying to do right now. I know we're trying to move on to something else, so by all means, go ahead.
No. I'm trying to find a reference to something as you were speaking. It's just so fascinating that we get so wrapped up in the complexity and in the speed but when we take it back, it's about building a strong foundation, right? As you said, you learn how it works at this small scale level. You can iterate, and then
Hmm.
that way, when you do scale it, when it does get to the next level, you can already anticipate more of what's likely to happen, right? There's more
That's right.
predictability and there's more safety. And ultimately, what good is it going to do if we figure out how to warp drive someone somewhere, but they're dead on the other end or they
Right.
can't come back, right? But we don't
Right.
know why. And we just keep, we just never figure it out from that process.
Right. It's gonna be tons of testing, tons of slow progress and slow incrementalization is what's going to happen, and that's
Yeah.
going to take time. And people don't want to hear that. In fact, actually, when I talk to potential investors, they're like, "It's going to take you like 30 years." I'm like, "Yep. If you don't like that, there's a door." Um, and because I'm not going to lie to people and be like, "We can do it tomorrow." Like
Right.
it's unethical, it's immoral, and
Yeah.
it's putting stress on myself. This is a long-term project. I might die before we do FTL. I might.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take care of myself, me kind of. But I do the best I can in that regard. But I'm probably going to be dead before this whole thing comes out. My goal is, and by the way, any good leader, their goal is, if you get hit by a truck tomorrow, will the work continue?
Mm.
Will the
Yeah.
company or what you're doing continue? And the answer is no. You have made a mistake. My COO and my senior staff and I actually swap. There's a flash drive that I've got that has all the information about what we're doing, everything on there. We swap every month. He has one as well. So if he gets hit by truck, I get that. If I get hit by truck, he gets it. That way the work slows down but doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't have a succession plan set up is in trouble. And this is why I'm kind of the weird person, and for lack of a better term, I'm the weird person in that captain seat back there, because I get the science enough to understand what's going on. I'm not the one in the lab, but I do understand what's needed, and I slot. Actually, one of the questions you asked, what's my superpower? This is where this comes in. My superpower is not yes, it's my brain. I can pick up a lot of shit. That's great. My superpower is being able to slot the right people into the right places.
Mm.
That's the superpower. And
Absolutely.
that is something that is very undervalued sometimes. because people kind of go, well, obviously this person goes here. Not always.
Wasn't yeah.
Um, not always. And also, it's about keeping people motivated and on target, and having them feel inspired by what they're doing is not only contributing but making the whole better.
Yes.
And good leadership and good management, I believe, is one, giving your people the tools and the abilities to do what they need to do. Support them, whether it's financially, whether it's psychologically or emotionally, because sometimes shit happens. Treat them like people, because they are. And I found that when you work with people and you treat them like human beings, like people that you actually give a shit about,
Yeah.
they're going to actually respond effectively. And it's kind of funny. People are like, "Well, isn't that just self-centered?" I'm like, well, technically, we're all self-centered when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
is it self-serving altruism? I mean, possibly. I mean, we can have a philosophical debate about what altruism truly is, but I do generally care about the people I work with. I want them to succeed, and they want us to succeed, which means we're all working together and we're all happy about it.
Right.
That's great. The whole Steve Jobs or the whole or Elon Musk, like, we're going to work 8 hours a week. That's not how you get good work. It's how you get work. I need people to be inspired, because we're doing, here's the box, and what we're doing is over there two states over.
Yeah.
I need people who feel safe, secure, comfortable, emotionally stable, who feel like they can come up to me and tell me to piss off. Every single senior person in my organization, the final interview, I asked them 2 questions. One, I looked over their entire resume and their CV, and I checked everything, and I asked them a question that I knew that they would have no knowledge of. So my COO, I asked him, he's a colonel, was a colonel in the U.S. military. He advised Joint Chiefs. He's a cyberterrorism expert. I asked him what the electron shell configuration of selenium was. I only wanted one answer. You know what it was?
I don't know.
I don't know. I want someone to say, I don't know. Because if you can admit that you don't know, it means you can learn. That's what I care about. The second question I asked was, if I'm acting like an idiot, if I do something stupid, can you pull me aside and tell me to piss off and hold me to that? And to his credit and my chagrin, yes, he has. And those 2 answers, cool. And everyone has done that. Every single one of the people that I've pulled on board, when I've been wrong, they've told me something. Some of them have done it with quite a bit of invective. That would be my CLO, CLO Alex Dolce. If she's listening, she pulled me aside and said, "You can't do that anymore. How dare you?" And dud. I'm like,
Right.
"Oh, okay. Why not? Here's why." "Oh, I didn't even think about that." She's like, "This is why I'm working with you, because yes, you did something stupid, but at least you listened and you're going to do it again." And I don't think I've done it again, which is good. But it's amazing when you look at people who are in these leadership management positions, and they just think that the people who they're working with, and by the way, no one works for me. We work for the company. People work with me because, yes, I'm in the center. Yes, I'm in the chair. Picard didn't sit in that chair alone.
Right.
He was surrounded by people, damn good people, who he has slotted into those positions for a specific reason, right? And when you watch, and I do love this about Star Trek, when you watch how the bridge crews work, especially Picard, he sits down, he's at the head of the table. Yes, he's in charge. He's going to make the final decision, but everyone talks. Everyone gives their opinion, and he listens. And sometimes he changes his mind, and you can see him change his mind. That's good, effective leadership, because when he does make the decision, person X might disagree with it, but they see the reasoning and they're going to go with it, even though they personally agree with it. You can't buy that. People go, just pay people more. You can rent loyalty, but you cannot buy it. And there's a difference. And you can rent loyalty for a long time with a lot of money, but money does not make you happy. It can make you happy up to a point. I should take that back. It can make you content up to a point. But having a job where you actually feel fulfilled and where leadership gives a damn about you is tough to find.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing cool missions, because it turns out that a lot of cool missions, a lot of leaders bank on the fact that the mission is so cool that they can
deal with it.
They'll just take it. I don't see that. I've done too much work in politics. I've done too much work to see. I've seen so much bad leadership. And you laugh, but like, I've seen so much bad leadership. I'm like, thank you for the lesson of what not to do.
Yes, everything is a learning process. Like, there's a lesson in everything.
Sure, but just because you say that doesn't mean that most people want it or are listening, right? And that's the thing too. There's lessons everywhere.
You have to be looking for it and be having that mindset, right? If you
That's right.
already can't say the words, I don't know, or you don't view this as a learning opportunity, you just get frustrated because it didn't work out that way, then that's going to limit you in so many ways. And it can be something as simple as, you didn't get to go to where you wanted to eat, right? Maybe now you discovered your new favorite cuisine, or maybe you met someone at that place because you went, or you can sit and stew and be like, they didn't do it my way, so now I'm going to throw my toys.
Right. And that's it's some people never leave their adolescence. Um,
Very
and
true.
and some people are in their 70s or 80s and never left their adolescence. Some
Mhm.
people live their whole lives and still act entitled. The world owes you nothing. It owes nobody anything. There are plenty of rich people who are doing amazing things with their lives and they're humble, and there are plenty of poor people who are entitled as hell. Like, it doesn't really matter. It really is a mindset. But with that being said, it's tough. It is difficult to break out that mindset. Like, I don't want to be told I'm wrong all the time. Who wants to be
Right.
told that? Like, no one does. I don't like it. Like, and the other part of the superpower is how to tell people they're wrong without pissing them off, which is
Right.
a really important thing because you can tell, like, and we've all had someone in our lives, and I mean everybody everywhere. I don't care for 10 or 100. So someone in their life who's told you that you're wrong in a good way where you listened, and in a shit way, but you want to punch them in the face. It's
Right.
just that simple. And there's plenty of people who are on the latter side who would be like, "You're just wrong." Why? Because I just know. Again, you have to lead someone to. I don't think that you're wrong, but have you looked at it from an alternative perspective? Have you done this way? I mean, da da. Like, it's. I love that. Surrounded by idiots. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a great
Um,
book.
yeah, it is. And for me especially, it's this concept of like, yes, tell me I'm wrong. And when it comes to people I trust, like, tell me I'm wrong. That's totally fine. But for the love of God, show me why I'm wrong so I can learn. Show me the data behind why I'm wrong. Just saying I'm wrong, I will listen to you. Yes. And why? Absolutely. Why am I wrong? Show me the data. Show me why I'm doing what I'm doing is wrong. We will have that conversation. Now, if we're both like at an emotional high state, let's break and come back when we're in a better
Yeah.
spot to have that conversation. I will shut up for right now. Absolutely. But we, this we'll put this on the back burner does not mean it's not cooking. We will have that conversation.
Right.
Not because I want to punish you. I want to know why. I want to learn and I want to understand why that was a mistake. I've done this with all my senior staff, both with the nonprofit and for what I'm running right now. And it's humbling because sometimes, and I would ask actually, when I first started the nonprofit, I literally pulled aside my CEO, who's my best friend, literally saved my life in Haiti. Her and I are best of friends. She just got married last year. I was at her wedding. It's wonderful. Um, Hi, if she's watching, she probably is. It was, she has told me I'm wrong so many times. And sometimes I would just burst into tears. I'm like, seriously, I can't see where you are. Several shots and 2 hours later, I'm there because she.
Yeah.
But the reason is because she cared enough to sit down and be
Right.
like, I love you like a brother. Let me tell you why this is wrong. Why what you're thinking doesn't fit. And
Mhm.
I'm willing to give you the time and my energy and my knowledge to help show you why that is. And
Yes.
people's time is the ultimate non-renewable resource, right? We only have so much time, right? So the fact that she would say, and of course, in exchange, I did the same thing for her.
Yeah.
And when she did something, I do the same thing, and I do the same thing with a lot of other people. But it's not fun. It sucks. I the number of times I've been told,
You're too fun.
the number of times I've been told I'm wrong, and the number of times I've been told, like, you're just wrong about this. I mean, I can it's probably in the thousands in the last few years alone about warp drive. I mean, I'm talking to people who've dedicated their lives to this. Like, it's not like this. I'm like, and I don't go, oh, I should shut up and never talk again
It's simply a
to their
perspective,
faces.
right?
Yes, but the thing is, after I get done, I do have that voice in the back of my head that kind of
Yeah.
goes, I mean, are you? I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I was like, why are you talking to me? Like, yeah, you were wrong about that one thing, but everything else you're fine with. I'm like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
focusing on the negative. They're going, for someone who doesn't have a physics degree, you're doing pretty damn well,
Yeah.
right? Because they're here and I'm here, but they're like, but you have to understand that everyone else is here.
Right.
So like,
Bridging
so for
that
me,
gap.
I felt like the silver medalist. I'm like, I can't see this. They're like, look down. If you look down, trust me, you'll see it. So it's gotten easier to be told that I'm wrong. I still don't like it, but it's something that, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, you have to sit with, you have to chew on, you have to digest, you have to churn on it. Why do I feel this way? Because I have an ego. Because I'm a human. Because no one likes to be told that they're wrong. But if you're going to do something extraordinary, if you're going to do something bizarre that is out of the mainstream, if you're going to do something this weird, you be told that you're wrong a lot. It's not
Yeah.
about building a thick skin. Sometimes it is about building a thick skin. Don't get me wrong, but it's also like, where's their criticism coming from? Is it valid? Is it invalid? They have a personal
Right.
reason. Can they show you why? Because I'll listen. If they're just being haters to hate, to quote the great 21st century philosopher Taylor Swift, haters are gonna hate. You just gotta shake it off.
Absolutely. That is so true. And you know what? It's, again, it goes back to that conversation of being disciplined, being willing to sit in that discomfort, and keep driving towards something, and taking in those perspectives and knowing that those are perspectives, because maybe from that current viewpoint, from that current knowledge standpoint, it's wrong. It can't work. But that's how we get breakthroughs, because you're pushing those boundaries and you're willing to try something that shouldn't work or doesn't work. And you apply it with your perspective, and all of a sudden we get that step forward or that leap forward, depending on what it is that we're talking about. And this is how you allow your mind to come up with new solutions, right? I mean, coming up with an impossible solution, again, when you say it, people are like, oh yeah, that was so easy. But when you're willing to be wrong, I think that is really how you can stimulate your mind, because you're not forcing yourself like, oh, I got to present this way and I have to be right or else I can't do it. If you're willing to be wrong, you will allow yourself to have those opportunities for new and impossible ideas.
Absolutely, and even better, the more wrong you are, if you listen well, the less wrong you become.
Mm, I'm gonna write
And
that
that's a
down.
fun thing, because it's try 10,000 things and fail at most of them. But then the more you try them, the more you realize that's not going to work, and you start sharpening your knife on the whetstone of failure, and you start moving forward in that regard. And I'm just making some really quotable stuff right now, so I know you're typing. So, it's oh, look at that. Sage. Wow. All right. Very kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. I might blush a little bit. Um, but it's true. The more wrong you are and the more you listen, the less wrong you become, because that is the point of failure. Failure is a lesson. Now, with that being said, failure is a lesson. Listen. If you keep making the same mistake, don't get me wrong, we've all made the same mistake multiple times. That's fine. That's human. It happens. That's perfectly okay. It's when you make the same mistake 20 times and everyone in your life has told you you made the same mistake 20 times and you're not listening and you're not changing your behavior at all. Maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you,
Right.
right?
There's
But
one common
also,
theme.
yeah, but I will say this, though. On the flip side of that, as I said before, we humans, maybe not everybody, but me especially, we have a penchant for self-punishment in that regard of like, you failed.
Yeah.
Why are you so stupid? Why are you so dumb? Why are you so bad? Why are you so ignorant? Why can't you do the simple thing, and so on and so forth? I think part of my journey of the past couple of decades, especially, was self-forgiveness and self-love and
Mm,
self-compassion, because we weren't. I'm a cis straight white guy. We weren't, and I was born and raised in the American South. We weren't really taught how to deal with our emotions very well, and I
yeah.
have emotional dysregulation. And my father really only showed one emotion very well, and that was anger.
Mm,
So that's what I learned, and it's taking a while to kind of deconstruct and unpackage that and kind of repack it. Like, how do you deal with those emotions? So now I'm having to sit down and do stuff and it's kind of weird. Women don't have a lot of advantages in the world. One of them is the fact that they can actually internalize and deal with their emotions a lot better, because their society is designed to allow women to do that. Society is not designed to allow men to do that very well.
right.
So women get a much bigger leap in emotional intelligence than men do. Men are always playing catch up. I'm playing catch up with my best friend. My best friend, she's in her mid 30s. I'm not in my mid 30s, and I'm still behind her because and plus she's a black woman in America, so she's got an additional piece on her as well. But learning that emotional intelligence, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so far below. But I'm also looking at it as, yes, I was, and I'm here, but
Right.
I'm yes, you're still climbing, and yes, you still have a ways to go, but look at how far you've come, right? And That never crossed my mind 10 years ago. I would always see the mountaintop. I would never see the valley that I left. And
Right.
a lot of people, I think, get trapped in that of like they're always looking forward. Because when you're climbing something, they always tell you don't look down, right? I don't. I look down. The reason I look down is like, dude, yes, it's 30 more meters, but do you see the 300 that you've beaten already? You
Right.
got this. You're almost there. You just you can go. There's nothing wrong with looking back and taking stock of progress if
Yes.
that's what gives you the additional fuel. But and you say yes, like it's of course, but most people don't. They're always focused on that goal. They want to see that,
Yeah.
and when they step on that rock and they stumble, they go, "I'll never make it."
Right.
Did you see the
But they
rock
don't
fall?
appreciate everything else that they've done to get there, right? You
Right.
have to celebrate the wins so that you can find more wins.
Right. And it's so fascinating to me how looking back at my life, how much I've changed in that regard of like of it used to be like I beat the crap out of myself when I made a mistake, even a simple one. Like just a
Yeah.
simple one was like I for a day or two, inconsolable. How could you be so dumb? Why were you so idiotic? I can't believe you do such a dumb thing. Now, and by the way, here's a trick. Um, when I hear my voice in my head, I don't say
Mhm.
I say Greg. Psychology tells us that when you hear your own voice and it's a third person voice, it's not you talking to you, it's somebody else talking to you. Now you're going to listen more. So I say, Greg, why are you doing that? As opposed to, why am I doing that? I talk to myself in the third
Right.
person. It separates my own ego from this disinterested person who's still me, but it's easier to listen to that person. And does the inner critic shut up? No. Can I make them quieter? Yes. Can I say, listen, do you just need a hug, buddy? Because it sounds like you just had a crap day. Fine. Greg's gonna give you a hug. And it sounds so like mamby pamby, like, oh,
No,
that's
but it's
dumb. But
true.
it
It's
works.
very
It
true. It
does.
does work. I would do that too. I wouldn't just use a third person. I'd actually give it like a name, like a character, and then
Yeah,
that would
right.
help.
Oh,
Um,
I've never tried that one. I like that. Like an
yeah.
alter ego.
Right, like, there's these different versions of you, and maybe or maybe I'll realize, like, "Hey, that's the, like, know-it-all 8th grader that's talking right now." Like,
Right.
maybe that 8th grader just needed someone to, like, play with her instead of, "Hey, go get another A on a math test," kinda thing, right? And so,
Right.
then you start to identify what your needs are, and maybe it is a hug. I have definitely been, like, on a call or done something and walked into the other room and just been like, "Babe, I need a hug." And he'll be like, "Okay." And he'll give me a hug and he'll be like,
Right.
"Do you feel better?" I'm like, "Yes." "Do you wanna talk about it?" "Not yet." "Okay." And that's
Nope.
like,
Yeah.
but it helps me in that moment to just come back and, get through whatever it is. And so being able to articulate that to other people also helps you get the needs met.
And sometimes you can't articulate. Sometimes it is just, I need a hug, or I just can you just
Yeah.
tell me I'm not a piece of garbage?
Right.
Sometimes
Yes.
like I need a 10-second phone call with a friend just to get external validation so I can reset myself and go where I need to go. Do you need to talk about this? Not right now, maybe never. But if I
Right.
do, can I come back to you? Of course. Done.
Right.
No problem.
And by asking for it, people are like, "Does that really work?" But the way our brains work, just like visualization, if you visualize something happening, your body's gonna produce the same chemicals as if it's already happened. Same thing. If I go, "Greg, I really need you to just tell me that I did a good job and I'm gonna get there and it's not a big deal." And then you literally repeat those words back to me, I'm gonna feel better because I got what
You
I
get that
needed.
pump, you get that endorphin dump of like, "Yeah, good job." You got the endorphin rush of like, "Yes, I did it," even though
Yeah.
you didn't. And but the thing is that your mind doesn't care. You did, and that washes away the bad emotions, that washes away those
Yes.
things, and now your emotions are realigned in a way where you can kinda go, "I can do this. I can get back up again." Because, we all get knocked down. Like,
Mhm.
everyone gets knocked down. And when
That
it's
song
something
just
hard.
got stuck in my head. I get knocked down, but I
But
get
I
back
get back up
again.
again. You're never gonna keep me down, Chumbawamba. The
So
name of the
good.
album was Tub Thumping. Um, Not that I have a bunch of random knowledge in my head that is totally useless. But it's it does require the rewiring of the brain in that regard, and you cannot do it alone. There's so many
Mm.
people who try to take this journey alone. I'm like, you know what happens to people who go backpacking alone? They die. And even the best prepared, not because they're doing something wrong, because you cannot plan for everything. And
Right.
other people can carry things that you might need. And sometimes you break a leg, and well, you need someone who doesn't have a
Or
broken
you
leg to
need
go
to
somewhere
saw it
else.
off like 127 hours, right?
Right. Yeah, and crazy, right? But the thing is that we think, especially in America, we have such an individualistic culture
I
of like,
know.
it's me, it's I, and da da. And that's great. Yes, it is you. But the thing is that you don't exist alone. You are not. No man is an island. To quote John Donne. When people go, "Oh, I don't need anybody." Oh, you mean like your teachers who taught you all your stuff when you were in grade school, and the roads and the police and
Your
all.
parents who
You have
made sure you
yeah, your
didn't
parents.
die.
Yeah, you have this huge structure that was supporting you to get you where you are, and you thought you did it on your own. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying that your contributions are zero or nil or negligent, because they are. You're doing something extraordinary, you're doing something special, and that's great. But if you think that you did it alone, you are discounting everybody else in your life who made sure that you got there. And to me, that strikes me as morally and ethically repugnant and abhorrent, because that's
Right.
not where you are. We are a community, even if we're more of a loose, strong community than everybody else. We are. Um, and if you don't use that community, what kills people like me, like cis straight white middle aged guys?
Loneliness.
Loneliness.
Yeah.
How do people? People talk about like the death rates from guns in the United States. Most of it's
Mhm.
suicides.
Yes.
That's why I don't have a gun. If I did, I might use it. I don't want to, but like, that 5 minutes when you're down and it's right there. I mean, and that's why a lot of people it happens the way that it does. But we have a pandemic of loneliness
Yeah.
and isolation in
And that's
our
worse than
system,
smoking, I think the Surgeon General just came out with.
because it is.
Might
Um,
as well
uh,
smoke
uh,
15 cigarettes a day over being lonely. Like it
it's,
was crazy.
yeah, it's amazing how we discount the how socially adept humans are, how
We
desperately
are
we
literally a
need.
pack. We're pack
Mhm.
creatures. We need to be social and in connection. And our brains developed so that we could negotiate and build relationships and bonds for the security and survival.
It's how we took over the planet. Like, how do when I'm a huge RPG person, so I love character sheets.
Yeah.
Humans put all of our dots into intelligence. We don't have sharp claws. We don't have hair. We can't
Right.
run really fast. We can run really far. We do have the stamina. What do we put our points in? Intelligence. How we
Yes.
use that. You go this way, and we're going to get that lion, right? So now we can hunt. We can actually take over things. How did states get formed? Because hey, listen, if all of us work together as an army, we can beat a disorganized rabble every single time, right? Organization is humanity's superpower. That is our
Mm,
superpower, is the ability to organize ourselves and to do this. And I think that when it comes to, which is why politics for me, studying political science was such an eye opener for me, because it's like, oh, that's why we do what we do, why we have these hierarchical structures, how we build these things, so that we can actually organize more effectively, because each of us individually are amazing, and we're all super bright and all this good stuff, whatever. But all of us together, we complement and expand each other's power, and we become so much bigger than we would be individually. Harnessing that and aiming it towards something, that's true leadership. That's true management in that regard. And the best leadership is when you don't feel like you're leading at all.
right.
When you feel, you know, on more than one occasion, I'm like, "What do you need from me? Nothing. Just leave me alone. Done."
Right.
And I used to feel, "What am I doing?" And the answer was, "Well, you set all this up so that you could do this, so that they could
Yes.
do this." That's the whole point of what's going on.
Yeah.
Organization is humanity's superpower. The fact that we can actually organize us on a continental scale to do crazy stuff. Like the pyramids were built, oh God, 6,000 to 5,000 years ago, as I recall. And that was built with just humans dragging shit, but organizationally speaking, it's extraordinary when you think about it.
Right.
Like you had to organize the agriculture, how to deliver the beer, the bread, you get everything, like the logistics. I think it was Napoleon. Is it Napoleon or Dwight Eisenhower? Uh, Tactics win battles. Logistics wins wars.
Mm,
Like moving stuff around and organizing people is the biggest superpower that you can ever have. And if you have someone who can build organizations to create force multipliers, that's extraordinary, in my opinion.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Greg, I have a question for you, and you actually posed this to me. And I think I have my answer because you just said something
Do
that
it.
I've been thinking about. But speaking about work drive, right? I give you a time machine. You can go to any point in the past. You won't be hurt by travel, but you can't interact with anyone there or anything. You can just see and hear the events transpiring. There's a translator, so you can understand everything that's being said. You don't have to worry about language. You cannot change history. You can only observe it.
Mhm.
Two things. One, you can only get 30 minutes, no more. And then two, only get one location and time in the past. Can't be like, you can't do piecemeal, no 10 minutes here and things like that. Just one time. Where would you go? When would you go to witness and why?
I would go to when the Roman Republic died, which died on the Senate floor. When Augustus Caesar came in that day
Mm,
and he said, "Listen, the Civil War's over. I'm laying down all my powers and I'm walking away." And the Senate said, "No, no, no," because they just went through 100 years of civil wars. And they're like, "No, no, we don't. No, no, we don't want you to do that. Would you be okay with taking this power?" And he's like, "I shouldn't, but all right." And there was this repeat of, "Well, we don't want you to leave." So by cloaking his dictatorship in Republican values, he was able to supplant the Republic with the Princeps, which is the beginning of the Roman Empire. And he was the first Roman leader to die in his sleep in almost a century.
mm,
And the massive amount of political legerdemain, the sleight of hand that he used to
yeah.
pull this off, I want to see that. I think
Wow.
that's extraordinary to be able to see this guy who could kill everyone in the Senate walked in voluntarily. "I don't want to do this. Please, no, not me. No,
Right.
not me. But if you
Okay.
insist for the people,
Yeah.
I
Right.
shall do this." Just the sheer naked hypocrisy, but it was necessary and vital to make this thing work.
Mm,
I for me, that would be a dream to watch just the pantomiming and the acting and how he pulled this off. And it wouldn't take that long. It'd take probably about 30 minutes because he's walking in, he's doing this, and they're all
yeah.
giving a speech and whatnot. I think it'd be glorious to watch that.
That you know what? Now that you say that, I almost want to change my answer because that would be very fascinating. I'm so fascinated. I have a friend who's writing a book on philosophy, and he's comparing the fall of the Roman Empire to where we are now currently
Yeah,
in
yeah.
history.
He's
And
not
and
the
when
only
you
one.
no, I know. And there's cycles. Again, it's like
Mhm,
learning from these cycles, but again, we not everyone's learning because they're being repeated. And so how do we make sure that we can learn from those things? I think, but it would be fascinating to watch that unfold.
mhm.
I don't know if I can pinpoint the exact timing, but definitely I would go to when the pyramids were being built so that I could
Ah.
watch the construction process and like observe the meetings that are happening because that just fascinates me. Everything about Egypt fascinates me.
It's funny. I actually asked this question to I asked this question a lot, especially on like first dates, because it's really fun to filter people.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually got a really interesting one. Someone said, "I would like to see the pyramids being built." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And they're like, "But a specific point." I'm like, "Which point?" When they put the capstone on the top,
Mm, that would be a
that
good one. Yeah.
last piece, because as I recall, according to ancient sources, it was a piece of gold.
Mm,
There's a pyramid piece of gold that goes right on the top.
yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, all
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and that would be in the 30-minute, thing. I was like, that's extraordinary, and I agree too. Like, there's so much in history that I'd love to see, um, and some of the answers I've gotten are fascinating. So, like, I want to see the crucifixion, I want to see the Big Bang, I want to see life first evolve. Like,
Mhm.
someone actually said, "That's stay on the planet." I'm like, no. And it's like I want to be on the moon on July 20th, 1969, to watch the Eagle land.
Mm.
I'm like, "Oh, all right. I
Yeah.
like that." And so for me, it's just like you said, it's like, let's open our mind to different thought processes because I would never have thought of that one. I never
Right.
saw that one coming. It's a question that kind of opens your mind to like, well, what would I want to see? You know?
Mhm.
And the people who really chew on it and think about it, because again, I've heard some fascinating answers, and I'm like, never even crossed my mind, but I love it.
Right. We
I like
couldn't
that
even
one.
conceive of that question.
Right, right,
Without
right.
that.
I think it's fascinating. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really do. And it's and I because I like your answer too, because it's just like, yeah, I'd love to see that one.
Yeah.
I'd love to see how they're doing it, like just like you said, like the conversation, because now it's about organizational leadership. Like, how do you get this done? Like, how the work
Yeah.
gangs do this? Like all these like this cool leadership management stuff. I mean, sure, and even better, current archaeology says they weren't slaves; they were workers. So it wasn't like they were forced to. They took pride in building the pyramids. In fact, they found graffiti like so and so work gang is building this for our pharaoh Khufu or whatever. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool, the fact that this wasn't this massive uh, coerced labor project. It was much
Right.
more like we're doing this because we want to, because we believe in this community. We want to build this bigger thing. It's extraordinary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Greg, I want to know, I have two more questions I want to ask you. And we're going to have to wrap up. I feel like we're going to need to do a repeat episode because we're
Oh,
getting into some
oh
amazing
no.
conversation here. We need more from the sage, Greg.
I'm happy to come back then.
All right. So we talked about the superpowers. And obviously we talked about loneliness being a problem, and we don't build things by ourselves, and we don't become who we are by ourselves. So who's on your board of directors? Who's helped you, whether they're dead or alive or in your inner circle or someone you follow? Who are the people that represent the board of directors when you need to check in for your personal decisions and how you go about the things that you do?
So I always go by the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I've spent the last 30 years or so. In fact, my mother said it herself. And she was like, what'd she say? And I'm going to say something that's really derogatory for myself. She's like, you keep dating the wrong women, but you pick the right friends. I'm like, well, thanks. Um, and because the friends I pick are not just, to use vernacular, they're not just ride or die. They're ride or die if you're doing the right thing. And they will not support immoral, unethical, or illegal, or shady actions or things of that nature. And it's taken me some trial and error, but like I said, my best friend, whose name is Rachel, she's like I said, she's probably listening. Best friend, we started the nonprofit together. When I have a question about something, I call her and she calls me.
Mm.
She will check me from a moral and ethical standpoint. She helps me decipher women because I don't understand women sometimes. So I'm like, what does this mean? And she's like, oh, right? I don't understand. But also, she knows me well to know how my thought process is. So when I say something, I think I'm saying something, but most people don't see it that way. She does, and she'll be like, "You're saying this, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." Why doesn't so and so? Because that's not what they hear. I
Right.
hear that, right? So her and I spent so much time together that I can translate her and vice versa. My current COO, Emmett, who you've actually met, I appreciate him because from a professional standpoint, he keeps me on the straight and narrow, and he has no issues telling me that I'm wrong whatsoever. And the joke I usually use with him is, I shouldn't say the joke. I'm the kite. I'm in the air. I'm floating. Look at me. I'm seeing all that stuff. He's holding the string on the ground.
Yeah.
So when he sees the storm coming, he's going to yank me back down again. Because yes, I need to be the visionary and looking out, but someone's got to keep me tethered to reality. And that's his job. And I ensure that when he says, listen, I'm pulling the string, I will listen to that, right?
Yeah.
Because you can have the best friend in the world. If you're not listening, it doesn't really matter.
Right. Again, it
Right?
goes back to the listening and then
It
doing
goes back to
something about
listening.
it.
So those are the 2 main people. I got a third friend of mine who I've known for more than a decade, who she also kind of acts as a check on me. Usually, I don't mind making decisions on my own, don't get me wrong, but I try to reach consensus because I'm like, listen, I'm neurodiverse, I'm weird. Does this make sense to you? And she says, yes, awesome. She says, no, but do it anyways. Why?
Right.
Why do you say that? Not because I'm going to change my decision. I want to hear the rationale from someone who's not like me to have that conversation. And I've tried to surround myself with people who are different from me, who've had different experiences, different genders, different races, different ethnicities, different sexualities, because I don't know what it's like being gay or black or woman or all these other things in America or in the world. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I would like to know. I can never fully understand, but I can listen and attempt to wrap my head around it, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
I want to. I absolutely want to. But I can't do that if I surround myself with a bunch of cis straight white guys.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I'm the only cis straight white guy on my executive staff at the at the for profit because it was designed that way. I don't want a bunch of tech bros surrounding me. Well, that's how we get. That's how we get everybody. So because my board of directors, these are people who, and I don't want to say, people I have culled, but these people who have self-selected because I want to make sure that they keep me humble but not beat me down. And
Yeah.
that's a really thin line to walk in that regard, because keeping you humble, like, I've always had a problem with pride of, like, listen, it's tough for me to kind of discuss myself as being intelligent, things like that. It's still difficult for me to do that. My friends will tell me that, and that's fine. It's still tough for me to internalize that. I
Yeah.
still have imposter syndrome. I'm going to probably have it till the day I die. With that being said, I also know that I have a bad habit. When I get into something I really think I know, I can just go off. So I need people to kind of be like, take it back a bit. Not stop talking, you're an idiot, and how dare you.
Right.
You take
Just
it back a
pull
step.
the reins a bit.
Yeah,
It's just a
pull back a
signal.
bit.
It's just a signal. Just like if you are working with a horse and you do something with the reins, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna slow down a little bit now.
Exactly. And
Right.
so I've surrounded myself with people who do that. And both in my personal and my professional life, I've surrounded myself with people who will grab the pom poms when they need to cheerlead, but will also grab the stick when I need to be pushed back a little bit.
Yeah. Like,
People who can use the carrots and sticks effectively
mm,
and will not overuse either. Plenty of people who will use the stick too much,
right.
and they're not useful. And there's people who also use the carrot too much.
That's also
Sycophants.
not useful.
Who's not useful. You're great no matter what you do. I don't need yes men. I don't need a sycophant. I need
Right.
someone. I need. I surround myself with equals, and it's tough to find people who. It's tough for us to internalize the fact that we are surrounded by equals,
Yeah.
and we don't like to do that. We like to think that we're better than everybody else. I try to surround myself with equals who are equal to me, not because of we all know the same stuff, but because they have different skill sets than me, and
Yeah.
I want to learn from them, and vice versa. That's what a good relationship, romantic, platonic, friendly, professional, whatever. That's what a good relationship should be. Let's learn, and I want to walk
Give
the
and
path
receive.
with you. Yeah, I want to walk the path with you that we're both walking, and we can help each other out.
Yeah.
And if I need to take a detour, you'll be there when I come back, and you're going to support me on that path, right? I want people who are in it with me, but not, you know, totally dedicated or anything like that nature. They've got their own lives, got their own things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amazing. So, final question, Greg. You know it's coming. Another species, race, whatever we want to call it, some form of intelligence comes to Earth, and the first human they encounter is you. What do they learn about humanity and how you show up? What is it? What's their takeaway?
You know, I've been thinking about this question for since you sent me, and I still don't fully have an answer. And the reason is because I don't know these aliens. I don't know what they're going to ask, what they're going to do, and how they're going to
Right.
kind of interact with me. Like, are they just going to rip through my memories and just yank stuff out? Are they going to interrogate me? Are they going to ask me questions? Because there's a big difference between like rifling through my memories and just yanking stuff out and
Right.
talking to me. To
And see, and
answer your
that's a
question,
perspective I've not heard yet before. So see, like, look, another thought process of how you can view this question.
right? Because we don't know how they're going to do it. Are they just going to like mind meld me and just yank it all out? Are
Right.
they going to give me a written questionnaire? Are they going to? Is it all colors? Like, I don't know. I have no
Right.
idea how they ask me the question. Now, what are they going to learn? They're going to learn that humanity is adolescence. We have a lot to offer, but we're also a bunch of assholes too sometimes, and that we are an imperfect species who have stumbled into some technological progress that might kill us. And we are in a very precarious stage of our development where we could either
Mm.
soar to the stars or we could nuke ourselves into oblivion. But it is our choice, and I'm hoping that if they got anything from me, that most humans, I'm not going to say that. I don't even know if it's most humans. I believe we can create an optimistic future for humanity. We can go out among the stars. We can do these things. Star Trek was a huge influence on me, obviously. And one of the things I loved about it was its optimistic take on the future. No, we don't kill every. No, AI doesn't kill us all. No, we don't kill each other. No, we don't nuke ourselves. We get over our shit,
Mm.
and we work together to explore the stars. I want that future. I work for that future. And if they read my mind, or if they gave me an interview, or they asked me these questions, I would hope that that is the main point that comes across. Yeah, we've messed up a lot, and yeah, our history is bloodstained, and we've done some awful things, and we have a long way to go. But we've come a long. To quote Virginia Slims, we've come a long way, baby. We've come a long way. We have a ways to go. Yes, absolutely. We could certainly use some help from an advanced alien species too. But you know, we could have done a lot worse, and we could all be dead. We're
Yeah.
not. And I think the determinator that is humanity, like we wake up every day and we fight nature that's trying to kill us every day. Like nature's trying to kill us every day, always. The earth doesn't care about us at all, doesn't care. And yet we still wake up every day. And it's kind of extraordinary to think about it. When you wake up every day, someone, your parents and their parents and their parents, everyone all the way back woke up every day and fought every day and had kids to have kids to have kids to come to you, because we're all survivors.
Right.
We're all survivors. And we're tenacious and we're assholes and we're evil sometimes, but we also produce great good. We can produce great optimism. We can produce amazing art. We can produce amazing culture. We produce shit too. Like when we have Kardashians. But we can produce extraordinary things. And I think that for us, especially, sentience and consciousness is such an extraordinary thing, because we do choose evil or good every day.
Mm-hmm.
We can choose these things. You can choose not to be evil. You choose not to be good. And I would want them to really dive into that and to really understand that yes, it is our choice, and we got a long way to go. And yes, we have a lot of things are out of date, and we got a lot of things we need to learn. But we're stumbling, but we're making progress.
Yeah.
And we work to better ourselves, hopefully. And we're still working to better ourselves. And we all want to be better people. I would hope that's what they got from me. And also, if they have any rum.
That is a wonderful answer and a very unique perspective. And so I think future guests are also they're gonna start looking at this question differently. It's really fun for me to see how this question evolves with each episode, and different guests bring different perspectives to even in just how they view the question and how they answer.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for that.
No, my pleasure.
Greg, if people want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to reach out, to learn more about the Warp Drive and all the amazing things that you're doing, both for the for-profit and non-for-profit?
So the nonprofit actually we had to shut down a couple of years ago, but that's okay. We might bring it back up again. That's okay. If you want to look me up, just type my name into Google. Last name is spelled Hodgin, no K, no S. I'm on LinkedIn. Oh, perfect. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you can find me there. And also our website is finally up and running. Fantastic. So we're very excited about that. It's zcinstitute.com. I will also be at the Diversity and Inclusion Convention in April in Philadelphia. So if someone wants to show up, and I'm doing a panel there on Warp Drive. So if you want to ask me this question, that's fine. I do my best to when people reach out to me, I do my best to give them some time and have a conversation with them, because you never know who knows who, and I want to spread this as much as I can. So find me. I'm happy to talk to you and talk about what's going on. And if you want, and Sarah, if you want to do another session, I'm happy to do that, because we didn't even dive into the UN stuff.
Yes, I know. We didn't even get to that. And there's so much more. We've just briefly touched on the mindset and how the political and humanitarian work you've done has influenced a lot of, what we did talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be a lot more. And you'll be at New Worlds again this November?
Yeah, I'll be at New Worlds. Unless I get killed, then I'll be at New Worlds.
Or unless the warp drive becomes really, really it's a quantum leap, and all of a sudden you've warped somewhere else.
Right, yeah, but I'll come back.
Yeah, no, exactly. You'll have figured out to make sure that you come back.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And thank you to all of our listeners that joined in for us today. The next episode of The Lounge will be live next Tuesday. Stay tuned.
Thanks a lot, Sarah.